Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 279, Widowhood as a Doorway.
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Okay, this one's going to be kind of short. And before we start, let me tell you that I did not have the heart to send my dog out of the room. She is sleeping. You might hear her snoring. Hopefully she doesn't bark, but she hurt her paw. And my little dog mom heart does not want to make her get up. So I don't usually record a podcast with her in the room, but we're just going to see how this goes. But it's a pretty short episode anyway. So the reason I want to talk to you about this today, or what inspired me to bring this to your attention, is a conversation that I actually had today inside of Mom Goes On with the new members for this month. And we were talking about how some of what they're noticing is struggles that have come from grief that weren't there before they lost their person. But then some of what they're noticing are struggles that they've had for a long time that are now coming to the surface. And maybe they're coming to the surface because, in large part, their person isn't there anymore to help them, right? If you're used to having your person be a cheerleader for you, if you're used to having a pretty loud inner critic that says mean things to you that you believe, but then your person was the one who said, it's nonsense. That's okay, right? You're fine. I love you. You're great. You're amazing. Right? And they kind of talked you down from a mean inner critic ledge that you were on, then not having them can be a real void. And what we're left with is some pretty mean stuff, potentially, or at least limiting, if not mean, that's been in our brain for a long, long time, sometimes decades, right? Sometimes we don't even remember life without some of the ways that we talk to ourselves and some of the ways that we see ourselves. And so this client was noticing that. She was noticing that what she was struggling with was really something she's always struggled with. She was just able to cope with it when her husband was there. And now that he's not, it's glaringly obvious that she's seeing herself in this way. She's talking to herself in this mean way. And he didn't do that. And so for that reason, and many others, I want to offer that widowhood really is a doorway. It really can be. Not that that means that we have to love that they died, of course, at all, but it really can be a doorway that we walk through to a more intentional life, to a more intentional way of thinking about ourselves, to a more intentional set of beliefs that we carry, to a more intentional way of being. It can be the doorway that we walk through whereby we no longer settle with some of the things that we used to settle for before. When you don't have someone to be your cheerleader anymore, and I get that many spouses were not cheerleaders, but if yours was, and you don't have that anymore, then widowhood can be a doorway to learning to be your own cheerleader, your own champion. It's not easy work, for sure, but it's possible. And this is post-traumatic growth, right? This is taking something that has happened to you and using it to increase your level of life satisfaction. Now, again, whenever I talk about post-traumatic growth, please make sure you know I'm never saying that should be a should. It's not a morally superior option. You're not supposed to grow from your grief. You're not a better person if you grow from your grief. You're not supposed to see widowhood as a doorway. This is just something that's an option for us if we want to take it. I guarantee you that as you listen to this podcast, there are some things that you are carrying around in your brain, some ways of thinking about yourself, some ways of talking to yourself. There's probably a long list, actually, but even if it's just one or two big thoughts that you have about yourself, that somehow you're not good enough, that somehow you aren't where you're supposed to be in life, that somehow you should be different, right? Maybe those are the kinds of things that you tell yourself. Maybe those are the kinds of things you tell yourself about your life, right? That your life isn't what it's supposed to be. I don't know, but I guarantee that if you're listening, it's very likely that you have some things rattling around in your brain. And those things don't feel like optional things. They just feel true to you. They just feel true. And you will know that they are there because of how you feel. You will know that they are there when you feel insecure, when you don't feel confident, right? When you feel anxious. When you aren't feeling good, it's because of something you are thinking in your brain. And I'm talking about of yourself, right? When you're not feeling good about yourself, I'm not saying you have to feel great about other people. You definitely don't. But I guarantee you that if you are feeling insecure, if you are feeling self-doubt, if you aren't feeling as confident as you want, it's because of something in your brain. And maybe you just coped with that something in your brain because your person championed you to no end and reminded you of what they saw in you and reminded you of how they loved you and how amazing they thought you were. And you took their word for it. Or at least you let their word carry you through and quiet the voice that was mean. But they aren't there anymore. This is an opportunity for you. I promise you. This is an opportunity for you to start thinking about yourself differently, to start thinking about your life differently, to think of what is possible differently, to change those long, age-old patterns that you picked up somewhere in your childhood, most likely, as a coping mechanism then that at some point was helpful and is no longer helping you. This is a chance to change that. We know that the brain is highly plastic. This is not news. We know that positive neural pathways can be created, right? Old neural pathways can essentially die. New neural pathways can be created. We can literally rewire our brains. We know this. Why not let widowhood be your doorway to that for you? Why not? It's already happened. You didn't ask for it. Here you are. Why not let it be the opportunity for you to take stock and ask yourself, do I talk to myself the way that I would talk to a good friend? Is my internal narrative useful to me, or does it hold me back? Does it keep weighing me down? Do I always have to prove through action something to someone? I think a lot of us are doing that. And this is what I find to be interesting about the world of grief coaching and the world of specifically the coaching that we do in Mom Goes On, because, in Mom Goes On, I'm really meeting widows who are in the grief plateau, right? They're through the early acute grief. They're back to functioning. They just aren't loving life. And what's usually in the way of us loving life, yes, it is grief to some extent. There are some griefy things for sure, but so much of it is older than that. It's the way that we think about ourselves, the way that we think about our bodies, the way that we think about our finances, the way that we think about our potential, the way that we think about our intelligence, the way that we think about ourselves in our own skin, the way that we think about our ability to be in front of people and our character and our personality. It's all of those things. And so if you want it to be, not because it should be, but if you want it to be, then I want to offer that widowhood could be your doorway to a new way of thinking about yourself and your life and what's possible for you. And I hope that if that's work you want to do, you'll come do it with us in Mom Goes On. That's what we do in there. So much of what we do in there. Even if you don't, though, it's still possible. You don't have to have me to do it. It's my favorite thing, but you don't have to have me. But could you give yourself that opportunity since you're here in widowhood anyway? What could it change for you if you did? Could you let yourself have that? That's what I want you to think about, okay? Okay, that's what I have for you this week. Remember, I love you. I really do. I really do love you. I hope you'll say that to yourself. I love you, and you've got this. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.